Every day of our lives, we are bombarded by thousands of different images. Images which affect us in countless different ways. But of all these, there's one particular kind of image whose power is uniquely mesmerizing. Because while it terrifies us, somehow it also comforts. But although it can manipulate us, it also reassures.
It's the image of death.
Even though these young people have probably never seen a dead body in their lives, they are captivated by these pictures. And they're not alone. Because whether we realize it or not, we are all drawn to images of death, whether we're on our own or with others.
We build graveyards and monuments to the dead.
And their photographs fill our homes. But why? What makes us surround ourselves with constant reminders of death? The answer lies not in the modern world, but thousands of years ago, when human beings first created images of death.
This is the story of how death captured the human mind, and how that drove us to create some of the most powerful images in the world.
Like most people, I've got images of my ancestors scattered around the family home. I've always loved this one of my grandpa Fred. He was a self-made man from the East End of London, lived through 2 world wars and died about 15 years ago. Naturally, we want to surround ourselves with pictures of people who've died because we love them. We want to preserve their memory. But I wonder if there's something else going on with these pictures. What if they triggered a range of emotions that I wasn't aware of? Subconscious emotions, more to do with my death than Grandpa's. Could my desire to surround myself with images like these be somehow helping to overcome my fear of death? Professors Solomon and Greenberg decided to run an experiment to try to discover what's happening in our minds when we see images of death. They began by taking 2 groups of American students. The psychologists made one of these groups think about death, but without them knowing it. And they did it by showing them these words: rose, sneaker, fajita, flower. See anything else? Well, you wouldn't, because it was too quick for television to pick up. Let's slow it down. Between the words, the psychologists flashed the word dead. Each subliminal image lasted just a fraction of a second, but long enough to put the idea of death into the subconscious minds of the subjects. The psychologists then showed both groups of people a series of pictures. They were images of famous dead Americans, icons who would have emotional value for the subjects. Like past presidents, George Washington and JFK. Or screen stars. The subjects then chose how long they wanted to look at the pictures. time which was measured. What the psychologists discovered was remarkable. The group who'd been made to think about death wanted to look at the pictures for significantly longer than the group who hadn't. It seems to show that if we're thinking about our own death, we gain reassurance by looking at images of those who've already died. But there was one civilization that was doing all of this on a simply colossal scale. They were the people who ruled here in Mexico City 500 years ago, the Aztecs. And these are their descendants. Today, they're here to see a modern-day blood ritual, a bullfight. Here in the stadium, the deaths of some half a dozen bulls will be watched by a huge crowd. Over the next few hours, 40,000 people will witness and enjoy this killing. What if the situation were reversed? What if all of us here were lined up to be sacrificial victims over 4 days, one by one? Well, that's what happened here about 500 years ago. It's almost impossible for us to comprehend the scale of such bloodletting. But Aztec historians record that in 1487, at the Great Pyramid of Tenochtitlan, executioners sacrificed 4 lines of prisoners, each 2 miles long. Victims were forced to climb to their deaths up the pyramid's 114 steep steps. And at the top, 2 killing rooms. Here, they were met by priests wearing masks made of human skulls and wielding sacrificial knives. While still alive, the victims had their hearts hacked from their chests. Their heads were then removed and placed on this stone rack. It was killing on a truly industrial scale. At least 40,000 deaths over 4 days. But that's not all, because the Aztecs then meticulously documented this slaughter with their art. Images like the giant statue of Coatlicue, with her necklace of hands, hearts, and skulls. And Mictlantecutli, the god of sacrifice, with his flayed body. And the Wall of Skulls itself. Here's an entire society that wanted to record the horrific slaughter it was perpetrating. The question you keep coming back to with the Aztecs is why? Why the killing on such a horrific scale? And more importantly for our story, why would you want to fill your world with images of this wholesale human butchery, as if you were proud of what you were doing? A clue to the answer lies on one of the Aztecs' most sacred objects, 3.5 meters across. It's the Stone of the Sun. To the Aztecs, the sun god was the giver of life. But this was a gift that didn't come cheap. And the Sunstone reveals why. At its center is the sun god. And in his outstretched hands, he's got two objects. They're human hearts. And in his mouth, he has a knife. This is one vast sacrificial altar. The sun god created the earth by sacrificing his own blood. This meant that people were forever in his debt, and now they must repay him with the most precious commodity that they had, their own lives. If the debt wasn't repaid, then the sun would go out, the crops would fail, and all life would perish. The artist who painted these images knew only too well the powerful effect that combining them had over the human mind.
The cleverness of the idea of redemption is that it can lead people to actually look forward to death rather than dreading it. The idea of sacrifice for the greater good is widespread. The idea of falling on that grenade for one's buddies. And then of course what we do is we memorialize such people. They're remembered more than the rest of us. So the idea of giving up one's life for the greater good and then getting something from that, getting redemption and being in a better place by dying in a heroic manner.
And that's why the cross is unique. It's the one single image that's working on the human mind in two opposing ways. It's a terrifying image representing pain, loss, and suffering. And yet, at the same time, it's an image that reassures, one that holds out hope. This combination has made the cross one of the most powerful symbols ever. And it explains why, so often, it's been used to try to give meaning in the face of the incomprehensible loss of life.